U.S. airstrike overnight on a Houthi-controlled target in Yemen.
The strikes.
You good? Part of an effort to deter attacks on ships traveling through the Red Sea. KTLA's Annie Rose Ramos joins us now with how the attack is hitting oil markets, what it all means for local ports, and just to set the scene about what is going on for people who aren't familiar with the region and the Houthi rebels.
Lauren, there's a lot of developing news this morning. We know that this latest strike happened earlier today. U.S. Central Command confirming they struck a Houthi radar site using a Navy destroyer to do so. But we want to explain exactly who this is. The Houthis are an Iranian-backed rebel group based in Yemen that has launched dozens of attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea since the war between Israel and Hamas started. Now, Western forces are taking action, starting on Thursday when the U.S. and the U.K. struck 28 separate Houthi sites in an attempt to disrupt their ability to fire upon international shipping lanes in the Red Sea. This was a move led by the U.S., but backed by other countries including Canada, Australia, Bahrain, and the Netherlands. These satellite images show the before and after of some of those locations in Yemen that were struck. The U.S.-led strikes targeted radar facilities as well as facilities used for the storage and launch of drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles. The Houthis vowing their forces would respond. The national security spokesman John Kirby speaking more about these strikes.
We're not interested in a war with Yemen. We're not interested in a conflict of any kind here. In fact, everything the president has been doing has been trying to prevent any escalation of conflict, including the strikes last night.
Now in Yemen on Friday, thousands took to the streets after the first wave of U.S.-led strikes, protesting in solidarity with Gaza while raising large Palestinian flags and chanting, "God is great, death to America, death to Israel." Now, when the Israel-Hamas war started on October 7th, the Houthis declared their support for Hamas and said they would target any ship traveling to Israel or leaving the country. And since November, the Houthis in Yemen have attacked at least 27 ships in the Red Sea. That's an average of one every 2 days. They say they are acting in response to Israeli military action in Gaza, but the Houthi threat has disrupted the key trade route via the Suez Canal. On Friday, Houthi militants targeted a tanker carrying Russian oil in a missile attack. President Biden speaking on the impact this could have on oil supply and prices here in the U.S.
We've put together a group of nations that are going to say that if they continue to act and behave as they do, we'll respond.
And a quick one on oil prices, sir. Oil hit $80 a barrel this morning after the strikes. How concerned are you about the impact the strikes will have on oil supply and prices?
I'm very concerned. That's why we got to stop it.
Now, President Biden also said that if the Houthis continue to attack those ships in the Red Sea, the U.S., along with our allies, will continue to bomb the Houthis in Yemen. But of course, there are concerns these strikes could cause a wider conflict. Megan?
Eagle was heading west when maritime radar picked up 3 unidentified objects fired in its direction. One found its target, hitting the hold, starting a fire. The latest strike on maritime shipping and world trade mounted by the Houthi militia. MV Gibraltar Eagle left port in South Korea on Christmas Eve, loaded with steel, and sailed west for the Suez Canal. At 10 a.m. UK time, it reversed course and was hit by a missile 3 hours later, 100 miles south of the port of Aden. It turned off its transmitter, or went dark, a few minutes later. This attack comes a few days after a mass strike by US and UK forces on the Houthis' infrastructure. That action designed to deter and degrade these attacks, yet the militia continue to threaten shipping in the Red Sea. And a spokesman said all American and British vessels would be considered hostile targets. The MV Gibraltar Eagle is stable. No crew were hurt. But this Iran-backed militia has retained some of its capabilities and its resolve. In an audacious assault on a British-owned vessel in November, they hijacked the ship and took the crew captive.
Well, we never thought that this would remove all of their facilities. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to send that very clear message. We will now watch and monitor the situation very carefully. But really, as we've said, not just the Houthis, but to their Iranian sort of masters, in a sense, because they're really proxies for Tehran, this cannot go on.
Yet the Iranians, it seems, have rejected that message, with their foreign minister accusing the White House and the West of hypocrisy. You call for calm in the region, then expand the war to the Red Sea, he said. A battle-hardened, if obscure militia, the Houthis are now causing great disruption on one of the world's major arteries of trade. It may prove extremely difficult to stop them. John Sparks, Sky.
Hamas. Thousands of demonstrators took to the streets just outside the White House yesterday, calling for the end to the Israeli military action in Gaza. And ABC's Patrick Reevell is in Tel Aviv, where thousands of people are rallying again, demanding the hostages be freed as the war marks 100 days. Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning, Rhiannon. Yeah, it's been 100 days since Hamas's October 7th massacre triggered Israel's devastating war in Gaza. Behind me here in Tel Aviv, thousands of people have been rallying to support over the 100 hostages still held by Hamas in Gaza. It's still such a live issue here. The situation in Gaza is catastrophic, though. The UN says 1.9 million people, 85% of Gaza's population, have now been displaced. And there are now warnings that over 500,000 are now starving, with famine looming. Nearly 24,000 Palestinians have been killed, according to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry. Such is the destruction that for the first time, Israel has found itself this week defending itself at the International Court of Justice against charges of genocide brought by South Africa. Israel vehemently rejects that allegation. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last night, in a speech to mark 100 days, was defiant that the war against Hamas will continue. But despite the devastation, Israel is still far from achieving its goals of defeating Hamas or freeing the hostages. Most Israeli officials signal that the fighting is going to go on for months more. Gio?
No end in sight just yet. Patrick, thank you so much.